The bass reverberates through the nightclub, shaking the floor beneath Chloe's heels. She takes a small sip of her cocktail, the sweet tang doing little to settle her nerves. Her friends are somewhere on the dance floor, lost in a sea of glittering lights and moving bodies. Chloe shifts uncomfortably on her bar stool, glancing at her phone for the 100th time. It's not that she doesn't enjoy a night out, it's just this kind of scene has always felt like an assault on her senses. The flashing lights, the deafening music, the strangers pressed together in sweaty euphoria. She sighs and turns back to her drink. That's when she feels a prickle at the back of her neck. Someone's watching her. Her gaze shifts across the room, scanning faces and figures. That's when she sees him. Elias stands in the corner, a drink in hand, but it's clear he's not here to party. His sharp eyes move deliberately, as if cataloging the people around him. When his gaze lands on her, a slight smile tugs at the corner of his lips. It's disarming, almost predatory, yet oddly magnetic. Chloe quickly looks away, her heart thudding harder than the bass. She stares at her drink, feeling self-conscious under the weight of his attention. Don't look back, she tells herself. He's probably just looking past you. But curiosity gnaws at her. Against her better judgment, she lifts her eyes. He's still watching. The moment stretches too long, and then he moves. He weaves through the crowd with effortless confidence, people instinctively stepping aside for him. Chloe's grip tightens on her glass. Is he coming this way? Do you always look this uncomfortable at parties? His voice is smooth, low enough to cut through the noise without being loud. He's standing beside her now, close enough for her to catch a faint whiff of his cologne, something warm and woodsy. Chloe blinks, momentarily caught off guard. Excuse me? Elias chuckles, setting his drink on the bar. You don't exactly blend in here. You've got the look of someone trying to calculate how long you need to stay before it's socially acceptable to leave. She narrows her eyes, unsure whether to be amused or annoyed. And you've got the look of someone who thinks they know everything about everyone. Not everything, he says, flashing that enigmatic smile again. Just enough. His confidence is irritating, but there's something about him, something she can't quite place. He's the kind of person who feels too deliberate, too composed for a place like this. It's as though he doesn't belong here either, and yet he seems perfectly at ease. Are you always this forward with strangers? She asks, raising an eyebrow. Only when I see someone I want to talk to, Elias replies. He leans on the bar, his piercing gaze locking onto hers. And I'd bet money that you're not here by choice. Chloe hesitates, debating whether to brush him off. But his guess is eerily accurate. I'm here with friends. It's not really my scene. Thought so, he says, looking pleased with himself. So, what's keeping you here? Loyalty or guilt? A bit of both, she admits, against her better judgment. Elias smirks. Let me guess. They're off dancing, and you're left here, babysitting their drinks? Chloe can't help but laugh softly. Something like that. I've been there, he says. But maybe I can make this night a little less unbearable for you. And how exactly do you plan to do that? She asks, skeptical but intrigued. Elias straightens, offering his hand. By showing you the one part of this place that's actually worth your time. Come on. Chloe glances at his outstretched hand, then back up at his face. Every rational part of her screams to stay put, but something in his gaze, a mixture of confidence and mystery, pulls at her. Against her better judgment, she slides off the bar stool and takes his hand. He leads her through the crowd, weaving past throngs of people until they reach a side door, tucked behind velvet ropes. A bouncer gives him a knowing nod before letting them through. The noise fades as they step into a quieter area, a private lounge bathed in soft amber light. It's a stark contrast to the chaos of the main floor. Plush seating lines the walls, and the air is filled with the low hum of conversation. Chloe looks around, impressed despite herself. How did you manage this? Elias shrugs. I know people. Of course you do, she mutters, unable to hide her amusement. He gestures for her to sit, then orders 2 drinks from a passing server. So, he says, settling into the chair across from her. Now that we're away from the noise, tell me what's a reserved woman like you doing with friends who drag you to places like that? Chloe hesitates. She's not used to opening up to strangers, let alone enigmatic ones like Elias. But there's something about him, something disarming. I guess I just don't like letting people down, she says finally. They wanted to celebrate, and I didn't want to be the buzzkill. Elias studies her, his expression unreadable. Let me guess you spent a lot of time worrying about what other people think. Chloe frowns. Is this your thing? Analyzing strangers for fun? Only the interesting ones, he replies smoothly. Despite herself, Chloe feels a smile tugging at her lips. She takes a sip of the drink the server brings her, the rich flavor spreading warmth through her chest. So, what about you? She asks, meeting his gaze. What's your story? Elias leans back, a shadow of a smile playing on his lips. That depends. How much do you really want to know? And just like that, Chloe realizes she's been pulled into his orbit, a place she's not sure she wants to leave. As they sway to the rhythm of the music, Chloe can't shake the feeling that Elias is unlike anyone she's ever met. His movements are graceful yet calculated, as if every step is part of a larger plan. Between dances, he leads her outside, where the city lights glitter like stars. Elias offers her a choice: to continue her predictable life or take a leap into the unknown. Chloe hesitates, but ultimately decides to trust her instincts. Their night unfolds like a dream. Elias takes her to a hidden speakeasy, where musicians play hauntingly beautiful tunes. He introduces her to a world brimming with secrets, enigmatic people, whispered codes, and clandestine meetings. Chloe feels alive in a way she never has before. But as the night deepens, Chloe realizes Elias isn't just a charming stranger. He's searching for something or someone. When she presses him, he cryptically says, "You'll understand when the time is right." As dawn breaks, Elias vanishes, leaving behind only a note. "Meet me here tomorrow at midnight if you're ready for the truth." Chloe is left with a decision. Will she return to her normal life or follow Elias into the unknown, risking everything for a chance at something extraordinary? As Chloe read the note, her pulse quickened. The message was cryptic, yet oddly thrilling. She looked around the bustling street, trying to catch another glimpse of Elias, but he had vanished as suddenly as he had appeared. Follow the rhythm. Trust no one else. The words played over and over in her mind. What rhythm? Was it a literal beat or a metaphor for something deeper? And why did he say to trust no one? Clutching the note, she decided to start at the last place she had seen Elias, the underground jazz bar where they'd first locked eyes earlier that evening. It had been a vibrant space, alive with music and shadowed corners where secrets seemed to thrive. Maybe there was a clue there. Chloe slipped back into the bar, the low hum of a saxophone filling the air. The atmosphere was just as electric as before, but this time, her focus wasn't on the music, it was on the details. She scanned the room for anything unusual, unfamiliar faces, peculiar interactions, or subtle rhythms that might guide her. Her gaze fell on the drummer. He wasn't playing a typical jazz beat. Instead, his rhythm was intricate, almost like a code. Chloe's heart raced. Could this be what Elias meant? She moved closer to the stage, her fingers tapping along with the beat as if trying to decipher it. Suddenly, the drummer made eye contact with her. His expression shifted surprise, then recognition. As the song ended, the drummer slipped off the stage and disappeared into a back room. Chloe hesitated but decided to follow him. In the dimly lit hallway behind the stage, Chloe found the drummer pacing nervously. When he noticed her, he froze. "You're not supposed to be here," he said, his voice low but tense. "I got a note," Chloe replied, holding it up. It said to follow the rhythm. The drummer's eyes widened. "So, you're the one he chose? Chose for what?" Chloe asked, her frustration growing. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he pulled out a small, folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to her. "If you want answers, go here. But be careful. They're watching." Chloe unfolded the paper to find an address scrawled in hurried handwriting. It was on the outskirts of the city, near the docks. Later that night, Chloe arrived at the docks. The address led her to an abandoned warehouse, its facade worn by time and secrecy. She hesitated before stepping inside, the weight of Elias's warning heavy on her mind. The interior was dark, except for a faint light coming from a room at the far end. As she approached, she heard voices low and urgent. She peeked through the crack in the door and saw Elias standing with a group of people. They seemed to be arguing. "It's too risky," one of them said. "We don't have a choice," Elias replied. "She's already involved." Before Chloe could process what she was hearing, the floorboard beneath her creaked. The voices stopped. "Who's there?" Elias called out. Heart pounding, Chloe stepped into the room. "You've got some explaining to do," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. Elias sighed, his expression a mix of relief and resignation. "I was hoping to ease you into this," he said. "But it seems you found your way here faster than I expected." "What's going on, Elias?" Chloe demanded. "And what does this have to do with me?" He took a step closer, his intense gaze locking onto hers. "Because, Chloe, you're the only one who can help us finish what we've started." Elias explained in hushed tones that they were part of a secret group working to uncover a powerful underground organization that controlled the city from the shadows. The rhythm in the jazz bar was one of their signals, a way to communicate hidden messages without drawing attention. "But why me?" Chloe asked. "Because you're an outsider," Elias said. "They don't know you, and that makes you unpredictable. You're our best chance to get close to them without raising suspicion." Chloe's mind swirled with questions, doubts, and a spark of excitement she hadn't felt in years. She knew this was dangerous, but something about Elias and the enigma he represented drew her in. "Okay," she said finally. "I'm in. What do I have to do?" Elias smiled, a hint of relief in his expression. "First, you need to learn to trust the rhythm. It'll guide you where words can't." As the night wore on, Chloe realized she was stepping into a world far more complex and dangerous than she'd ever imagined. But with Elias by her side, she couldn't bring herself to walk away. Chloe stood in the dimly lit club, her heart pounding to the beat of the music. Elias had slipped her a small, folded note before disappearing into the crowd. The note contained only a single sentence. "The rhythm will guide you, if you dare to listen." At first it seemed cryptic, almost nonsensical. But as the music shifted, she noticed something peculiar subtle, repeated patterns buried beneath the heavy bass. A sequence of beats, 3 short and 1 long, repeated like a code. She closed her eyes, letting the rhythm sink in, and began moving through the club. Her instincts told her there was more to this than just a game. The beats seemed to grow louder as she approached the corner of the dance floor. A neon-lit booth pulsed in sync with the music. She reached under the table and felt something etched carvings in the wood. Numbers: 17, 03, 22. Chloe grabbed a napkin and quickly jotted them down, her mind racing. Were they a date? A time? Coordinates? As she pondered, the music shifted again. This time, it was slower, with a haunting melody woven in. She followed the sound to the bar, where the bartender was wiping glasses, his gaze oddly knowing. "Looking for something?" he asked, sliding a drink toward her. The drink was garnished with a small, folded card. Chloe hesitated, but opened it. "The next clue is beneath the surface. Dive deep." She turned the card over and noticed faint watermarks, waves, or ripples. Chloe scanned the room, her eyes landing on a glowing staircase leading down to the club's basement. She descended cautiously, the music fading behind her. The basement was eerily quiet, illuminated only by soft, blue lights reflecting off a shallow pool in the center. Beside the pool was a mirrored pillar, its surface fogged. As Chloe approached, her breath hitched. Words began to form on the glass, written as though by an invisible hand. "Find what they hide." She knelt by the pool, running her fingers over the surface of the water. It was cool, almost unnaturally so, and she noticed a small shimmer beneath the surface. Submerging her hand, she retrieved a waterproof box. Inside was an ornate key, along with a note. "Room 17. You're closer than you think." The numbers from the booth suddenly clicked. Racing back upstairs, she scanned the walls for room numbers. Most of the club was open floor, but tucked in the back corner, she spotted a discreet, unmarked door. The key fit perfectly, and the door creaked open. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. On a table sat a single, flickering candle next to an envelope with her name on it. She opened it, her hands trembling. "You've proven yourself. If you're ready to uncover the truth, meet me on the rooftop at midnight." Chloe glanced at her watch, 11:47. She had 13 minutes to decide if she was ready to plunge deeper into Elias's world. The pulsing beat of the club dulled as Chloe followed Elias through narrow, twisting hallways lit by flickering neon lights. His presence was magnetic, a force she couldn't resist. The further they moved from the crowded dance floor, the more her surroundings morphed into something surreal: walls adorned with abstract graffiti, shadows stretching unnaturally long, and doors leading to who knew where. "You didn't stumble into my world by chance," Elias said, glancing back at her with a smirk that hinted at 1,000 secrets. His voice was steady, yet layered with something deeper, like an unsaid warning. "You've got something I need." Chloe blinked, her curiosity sparking. "Me? What could I possibly have?" Elias stopped in his tracks, turning to face her. His dark eyes held hers with an intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "You've seen it, haven't you?" "Seen what?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling slightly. He leaned in closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The key." Chloe's breath caught in her throat. Images flickered in her mind, strange symbols in her dreams. A sense of déjà vu at the club tonight, and the strange, glowing pendant she'd found in her grandmother's attic a week ago. She instinctively touched the chain around her neck, hidden beneath her shirt. "How do you know about that?" she demanded, taking a step back. Elias gave her a knowing look. "Because I've been looking for it for a long time. And now it's found you." The air between them seemed to thrum with an unspoken energy. Chloe's pulse quickened. "What does it even do? Why do you need it?" Elias hesitated for the first time, his confident facade flickering. "It's complicated. Let's just say, there are people, dangerous people, who will do anything to take it from you. And if they do, it won't just be your life at stake." A chill swept over Chloe as the gravity of his words sank in. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you don't have a choice," Elias said, stepping closer. His voice softened, yet his urgency remained. "You're part of this now, and if you want to survive, you'll have to trust me." Before Chloe could respond, the sound of hurried footsteps echoed down the hallway. Elias's expression darkened. He grabbed her wrist. "We have to move. Now." He led her through a hidden door disguised as part of the graffiti, the two of them slipping into a dimly lit passage. Behind them, voices called out, growing louder. Chloe's heart raced as she stumbled after Elias, questions flooding her mind. Who is he really? What had she gotten herself into? But as the passage opened into a hidden underground chamber, filled with strange artifacts and glowing symbols etched into the walls, one thing became clear. Her life would never be the same again. As the city lights blurred into streaks of neon, Chloe and Elias ducked into a dimly lit jazz bar tucked away in an unassuming alley. The music flowed like honey, smooth and bittersweet, echoing the rhythm of their racing hearts. They settled into a corner booth, the soft glow of the table lamp casting shadows on Elias's sharp features. "You know," Chloe said, her voice barely rising above the saxophone's mournful wail, "I always thought I'd have figured things out by now. Who I am, what I want, but I feel like I'm just existing, not living." Elias studied her for a moment, his dark eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and sadness. "You're braver than you think, Chloe. Most people wouldn't dare to chase something more." She smiled faintly, her fingers tracing the edge of her glass. "What about you? You talk like someone who's seen it all." His jaw tightened as if weighing how much to reveal. "I've seen enough to know that living comes with a price. My past. Let's just say it's not something I'm proud of." He paused, his gaze distant. "But meeting you tonight, it almost feels like a reminder that there's still beauty in this world." Chloe's heart fluttered at his words, but before she could respond, the atmosphere in the bar shifted. A man in a dark suit entered, his eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Elias tensed immediately, his hand instinctively reaching for Chloe's. "We need to go," he whispered, his tone urgent. "What's going on?" she asked, her pulse quickening. "No time to explain," he said, pulling her gently from the booth. They slipped out through the back door, just as the man's gaze landed on their empty seats. Outside, the alley was drenched in the rain, the sound of droplets muffling their hurried steps. Chloe's heels splashed against the pavement as Elias led her through a labyrinth of narrow streets. Her adrenaline spiked as she caught glimpses of shadowy figures in pursuit. "Who are they?" she asked breathlessly. "They're part of the reason I left that life behind," Elias admitted, his voice tight. "But it seems the past isn't ready to let me go." They rounded a corner and found themselves in a quiet park, the only light coming from a flickering lamppost. Elias stopped, his chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Chloe looked at him, her own fears momentarily forgotten as she saw the anguish in his expression. "Elias, you don't have to face this alone," she said softly. "Whatever this is, we'll figure it out." He looked at her, a flicker of hope breaking through his guarded exterior. "You don't even know me, Chloe. You don't know what you're getting yourself into." "Maybe not," she said, stepping closer. "But I know what it's like to feel trapped, and I know what it's like to want more. If I didn't meet you tonight, I'd still be stuck in that endless loop. You gave me something to believe in. Why can't I do the same for you?" Elias stared at her for a long moment before nodding, the corners of his mouth lifting into the faintest smile. "You're impossible. You know that?" "Maybe," she said with a playful grin. "But I'm not letting you run off without me." The moment was short-lived as a car engine roared in the distance. Elias grabbed her hand again, his grip firm but reassuring. "Then let's keep running, Chloe." Together, as they disappeared into the night, the park fell silent once more, the rain washing away their footprints. But for Chloe and Elias, the chase had only just begun, a chase not only for safety but for freedom, redemption, and a chance to redefine their lives. Chloe clutches Elias's arm, her heart pounding as they weave through the crowded marketplace. The shadowy figure is always just a step behind, blending seamlessly into the sea of faces. Her instincts scream danger. "Who's following us?" she whispers, glancing nervously over her shoulder. Elias's jaw tightens. "Not who," he mutters. "It's them, a syndicate called the Black Veil. I stole something they want back. Something I wasn't supposed to take." Chloe's breath catches. "What did you steal?" Elias hesitates, then reaches into the inside pocket of his leather jacket. He pulls out a small, unassuming key. It's a key to their vault, a vault filled with secrets they've killed to protect. Chloe stares at the key, her mind racing. "You didn't think to mention this earlier?" "I didn't want to drag you into it," Elias says, his voice laced with regret. "But it's too late now. They know you're with me." Suddenly, a sharp whistle pierces the air. Chloe and Elias look up to see three men in dark suits step out of the crowd, their eyes locked on the pair. "Run!" Elias grabs Chloe's hand, pulling her into a narrow alleyway. The chase is relentless. The syndicate agents are fast, but Elias knows the city's hidden paths like the back of his hand. They duck into an abandoned warehouse, the dim light filtering through broken windows, casting eerie shadows on the walls. Elias takes a moment to catch his breath, his back against the wall. Chloe's chest heaves as she glares at him. "You better have a plan, Elias." "I do," he says, though his tone betrays his uncertainty. "We need to find someone who can help us decode what this key opens. There's a hacker named Vega who owes me a favor." Chloe frowns. "And how do we find Vega?" Elias smirks faintly. "That's the easy part. He's always at the Neon Mirage, a club on the edge of the city. The hard part is convincing him to help without getting us killed." Just as they start to move, the warehouse door creaks open, and the shadowy figure steps inside. Chloe's breath catches. It's not one of the men in suits. This person moves differently, with a deliberate and almost predatory grace. The figure steps into the light, revealing a woman with sharp features and piercing blue eyes. She wears a sleek black trench coat, and a thin scar traces the edge of her jaw. "Elias," she says, her voice smooth and commanding. "You've been a very bad boy." "Raven," Elias mutters, his expression darkening. "Who's she?" Chloe asks, her voice shaking. Elias doesn't answer. Raven's lips curl into a smirk. "I'm the one who taught him everything he knows. And now I'm here to take back what's ours." Before Elias can react, Raven pulls out a blade, its edge gleaming ominously. "Hand over the key, and maybe I'll let your little girlfriend walk out of here alive." Elias steps in front of Chloe, his fists clenched. "Not a chance." The tension escalates as Raven reveals herself to be a former mentor-turned-enemy. She's working for the Black Veil, but her motives are more personal than professional. The group must navigate the city's underworld to find Vega, decode the key's purpose, and uncover what secrets the Black Veil is hiding, all while staying one step ahead of Raven and her syndicate. Chloe, initially unprepared for the danger, finds herself growing braver and more resourceful, challenging Elias to open up about his past. Meanwhile, Elias wrestles with guilt for dragging Chloe into his mess while trying to protect her. The story could explore themes of trust, betrayal, and redemption as they uncover the mystery of the key and face off against the Black Veil. The club's backroom feels like a furnace as the tension crackles in the air. After disarming the hitman, Elias quickly retrieves the weapon and points it at the man, forcing him to talk. Chloe, her pulse racing, tries to process what she just learned about Elias. "You're mixed up with the syndicate?" she hisses, her voice barely above a whisper. Elias doesn't answer immediately. Instead, he grills the hitman for information. "Who sent you? And how many more are coming?" The hitman smirks. "You think taking me down changes anything? The whole city's crawling with eyes. You'll never make it out alive." Before Elias can press further, the sound of footsteps echoes in the hallway outside. "We need to go now," Elias says, grabbing Chloe's arm. As they escape through the club's back alley, Chloe pulls away. "You're putting my life at risk, Elias. I didn't sign up for this." Elias turns to her, his dark eyes filled with regret and urgency. "I didn't want you involved, but now that you are, the only way out is forward." He shows her the flash drive. This contains everything: names, transactions, operations. It's enough to dismantle the entire syndicate, but they'll do anything to get it back. "I need to find someone who can make this public, someone I can trust." Chloe stares at him, torn between running for her life and staying to uncover the truth. Against her better judgment, her curiosity and her feelings for Elias went out. "I'm staying," she says, steeling herself. "But you owe me answers." Elias agrees to explain everything once they're safe. The two head to a rundown safe house on the outskirts of the city. There, Elias reveals his past. He was once part of the syndicate but turned against them after witnessing their brutal methods. The flash drive is his insurance, a weapon he's been saving for the right moment. But the syndicate isn't the only threat. Chloe's phone buzzes with messages from her best friend, warning her that she's being looked for. Her face has already been plastered across social media, labeled as a person of interest connected to a violent altercation at the club. "Looks like they're not just after you," Chloe says bitterly. Elias curses under his breath. "They're trying to isolate us. We'll need help if we're going to survive this." Elias decides to contact an old ally, a journalist named Lena who has been investigating the syndicate for years. They arrange to meet at an abandoned train yard at midnight. Chloe can't shake the feeling that it's a trap. When they arrive, Lena is already waiting, her sharp eyes scanning the darkness. She's skeptical of Elias, but agrees to take the flash drive, promising to leak its contents to her trusted network. But before they can hand it over, a group of armed syndicate operatives surrounds them. Lena was followed, and now Elias and Chloe are outnumbered. The syndicate's leader, a charismatic but ruthless man known only as Victor, steps forward. He offers Elias a deal: return the flash drive and walk away unharmed, or watch Chloe pay the price. Elias hesitates, the weight of the decision evident on his face. Chloe, refusing to be a pawn, surprises everyone by grabbing a loose pipe and taking out one of the operatives. Chaos erupts as Elias and Chloe fight their way out, with Lena providing unexpected backup. In the aftermath, Elias realizes the fight has only just begun. The syndicate will stop at nothing to recover the evidence. Chloe, no longer the reluctant bystander, becomes an active participant in the mission. Her resourcefulness and determination surprise even Elias. As they go deeper into the city's underbelly, they uncover more layers of the syndicate's influence and more people willing to help bring them down. But with every step forward, the danger intensifies. Chloe and Elias must navigate shifting alliances, personal betrayals, and their growing feelings for each other as they race to expose the truth before it's too late. The decision was made. Chloe's heart pounded in her chest as she stepped closer to Elias, her mind swirling with uncertainty and exhilaration. The shadows of the night seemed to wrap around them, amplifying the danger and mystery that lingered in the air. Elias, sensing her resolve, gave her a small but approving nod. "It's not going to be easy," he warned, his voice low but full of a strange promise. "But I'm not doing this alone." Chloe's breath caught, a shiver running down her spine. "I don't want to be safe," she replied, her voice trembling with anticipation. "I want to be with you." Without another word, Elias took her hand, leading her into the unknown. The world around them felt different now, dangerous, electric, but full of possibility. They moved through dark alleyways and bustling streets, evading anyone who might be tracking them. Chloe could feel the tension in the air, but at the same time, there was something intoxicating about it. Every step they took felt like they were crossing into a new reality. Elias led them to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, the kind of place people went to hide. Inside, the space was cavernous, filled with remnants of forgotten machinery and broken windows that led in the moonlight. Chloe's pulse raced as she tried to make sense of the situation. What had she just stepped into? "You're safe here," Elias said, as if sensing her unease. He turned to her, his eyes intense, almost unreadable. But this is where things get complicated. Chloe felt a chill run through her as he spoke. She could see the weight of his words in his eyes, but there was no turning back now. She had chosen this path, and whatever lay ahead, she would face it with him. "Tell me what's going on, Elias," she said, her voice steady but laced with curiosity. "Why are we running? What's happening?" Elias hesitated, then finally spoke. "There are people who want me gone. People who will stop at nothing to make sure I'm out of the picture. They're connected to something bigger than either of us, but we can't back down now. We need to keep moving forward, no matter what." Chloe's heart raced as she processed his words. She didn't know what Elias was mixed up in, but she could see the determination in his eyes. The night had already changed her, pulled her into something she hadn't expected, and now there was no turning back. "Then we'll fight," she said, her voice resolute. "We'll face whatever comes." Elias looked at her, a flicker of admiration crossing his face. "I knew I wasn't wrong about you." As the hours passed, Chloe and Elias worked together to strategize their next moves, trying to stay ahead of those who were after him. In the quiet moments, Chloe couldn't help but wonder, what had she just walked into? And how far was she willing to go for Elias? As the fire alarm blared through the club, the entire place erupted into pandemonium. People screamed, pushing and shoving to get to the exits. The air was thick with confusion, the strobe lights flashing erratically as the club's sound system was drowned by the shrill noise. In the midst of it all, Elias kept his cool, his eyes flicking toward Chloe, whose heart was pounding in her chest. Now he shouted over the din, grabbing her wrist and pulling her toward a service door at the back of the club. The door opened into an alleyway, the cold night air biting at their skin as they stepped into the darkness. Behind them, the chaos of the club was beginning to spill into the streets. Chloe could still hear the distant shouts, but Elias had already begun to lead her down the alley, his pace quick but steady. They barely made it a block before the sound of footsteps grew louder, and a sleek black car screeched around the corner, its headlights cutting through the dark. The syndicate hadn't taken long to realize they'd been played. Chloe's breath caught in her throat. "They're here," she whispered, but Elias only smiled darkly, as if the chase was something he welcomed. "We'll lose them," he said confidently, but there was an edge to his voice that suggested he wasn't as certain as he appeared. They darted into a narrow passageway between buildings, their shoes splashing through puddles as they moved faster. The night was thick with tension as the sounds of pursuit grew closer, the syndicate's men methodically closing in. The flickering of distant streetlights illuminated their path, but it was only a matter of time before they were cornered. Chloe could feel her pulse quicken, the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She wanted to ask Elias how he planned to escape this, but the words caught in her throat as they turned another corner. The alley opened up to a wide street, a perfect vantage point for the men who were closing in. "Get in," Elias suddenly barked, pushing her toward a small van parked on the side. Before she could ask any questions, Elias had pulled the door open and jumped into the driver's seat, slamming it shut behind him. Chloe followed suit, unsure of whether this was part of some elaborate plan or simply their last-ditch effort to escape. The engine roared to life as Elias slammed his foot on the gas, sending them barreling down the street. Through the rearview mirror, Chloe could see the black car trailing them, its headlights glowing like an ominous specter in the night. "We can't outrun them forever," she said, her voice trembling slightly. Elias's grip tightened on the wheel, but his voice remained calm. "We won't need to." He swerved the van down a series of twisting streets, weaving through traffic and taking sharp turns. The black car followed relentlessly, but Elias's eyes were scanning the streets ahead, calculating their next move. Without warning, he jerked the wheel to the left, sending the van onto a narrow dirt road. The tires screeched against the gravel, but the van stayed steady. Chloe's heart raced as she realized Elias was leading them into the wilderness, far from the city. "Where are we going?" she demanded, her curiosity getting the better of her. "Somewhere safe," Elias replied, his gaze fixed on the road ahead. "But we'll have to lose them first." The road grew narrower and rougher, the trees on either side closing in like a dense wall. As they turned sharply again, Chloe glanced back to see the black car struggling to keep up, its engine roaring as it hit the same uneven ground. Elias shot her a quick glance. "Hold on." He floored the accelerator. The van surged forward, the engine growling as it powered through the uneven terrain. In the distance, the black car was losing ground, its headlights dimming against the thick cover of trees. Minutes passed like hours, and just as Chloe thought they might actually shake them off, Elias veered off the path, taking them into a dense forest. The trees towered above them, blocking out the moonlight. Chloe could barely see anything except the occasional flash of foliage as the van jolted through the underbrush. Finally, Elias slammed on the brakes. The van screeched to a halt in the middle of the forest, surrounded by silence. Chloe exhaled sharply, her chest heaving as she glanced at Elias, who was already out of the van, moving swiftly to the back. "Stay here," he instructed. "I'll make sure they don't follow us." But Chloe wasn't about to sit idly by. She jumped out after him, her senses on high alert. They needed a plan and fast. The syndicate might have lost them for now, but they wouldn't stop until they found them. "What's next?" Chloe asked, determination in her eyes. Elias turned to her with a steely look. "Now we get the upper hand." As the first light of dawn spreads across the sky, Chloe and Elias stand silently on the rooftop, the weight of their words lingering in the cool morning air. The kiss they shared wasn't just an affirmation of their bond. It was a pledge to face whatever came next together. Chloe's heart raced as she processed everything Elias had revealed. The flash drive wasn't just a key to uncovering dark secrets, it was a ticking time bomb. Whoever held it could topple governments, dismantle corporations, and shatter lives. She had always been drawn to the edge of danger, but this was different. The stakes were higher, and the shadows surrounding Elias were darker than she'd ever imagined. Elias turned to her, his eyes filled with both resolve and uncertainty. "You don't have to do this," he said, his voice low and gravelly. "You've seen enough. It's dangerous. More than you think." Chloe met his gaze with a determined smile. "I'm not backing out now. I won't let you face this alone." With the kiss still fresh on their lips, Chloe's mind raced. There were so many questions, so many unknowns. Who were these powerful people Elias had mentioned? And why did they want a flash drive so desperately? "We need to move quickly," Elias said, pulling her from her thoughts. "They'll come after us. We can't stay here much longer." Chloe nodded, her instincts kicking in. "Where do we go?" Elias hesitated. "I know a safe house, but it won't be easy getting there." The plan was set into motion almost immediately. They slipped off the rooftop, disappearing into the streets below, blending into the shadows. But even in the relative safety of the city's hidden corners, The feeling of being hunted hung over them like a dark cloud. As they neared the safe house, Chloe's thoughts flickered to the kiss again. It had been a promise one she couldn't ignore. She was in this with Elias, and whatever secrets the flash drive held, they would uncover them together. There was no turning back. But as they entered the building, the sound of a distant helicopter's rotor sliced through the silence, a chilling reminder that danger was already closing in. "What now?" Chloe asked, her voice steady despite the rising tension. Elias's face was unreadable. "Now we wait, but we don't stop." As Chloe and Elias navigate the city's bustling streets, the night hums with a mysterious energy. The neon lights flicker above, casting fleeting shadows on their path. Elias, seemingly at ease amidst the chaos, leads Chloe into alleyways and hidden corners of the city she never knew existed. With every turn, she feels more drawn to him, a magnetic pull she can't explain. Their journey takes them through forgotten places, an abandoned warehouse transformed into a secret art gallery, a rooftop overlooking the glowing city skyline, and a hidden speakeasy where the sounds of jazz blend with whispered secrets. Elias speaks little, but his every gesture and glance reveals a depth that leaves Chloe wondering who he really is. Each encounter, each whisper of the wind, feels deliberate, as if he's guiding her towards something. As the night deepens, Chloe begins to sense that Elias is more than just a charming enigma. He hints at a past he's trying to escape, yet one that continues to haunt him. Chloe can't help but wonder, is Elias running from something or towards something? And why has he brought her along for this ride? At the height of their adventure, they find themselves at the city's edge, standing on a bridge that overlooks the water. The city's glow seems distant here, and the night air is thick with the promise of change. Elias turns to Chloe, his eyes locked with hers. "You've always felt like you were meant for something bigger, haven't you?" he asks softly, his voice carrying a weight she can't ignore. Chloe, taken aback by the question, nods, unsure how to respond. "What if I told you that everything you've ever known, every step you've ever taken, was leading you to this moment?" He continues, stepping closer. "You're not just a part of the city. You're part of something far larger than you can imagine." Chloe feels a surge of emotion, fear, curiosity, excitement, all blending together. But before she can ask him more, Elias takes her hand. "The future is not written in stone, Chloe. It's something we create together." With that, they disappear into the mist of the city, leaving behind a world that no longer feels quite the same. As the city's hum fades behind them, Chloe and Elias travel deeper into the unknown, their journey taking them into the heart of a secret that has been hidden for generations. The world around them changes subtly, the streets grow quieter, the air heavier with an unspoken promise. Chloe begins to realize that this city, with all its lights and chaos, is a backdrop to something far grander, something that only Elias truly understands. The further they go, the more surreal their surroundings become. Streets that seem ordinary by day take on a strange, almost otherworldly glow under the moonlight. Buildings that should be abandoned are full of life, their windows flickering with mysterious, shadowed figures. Elias moves with purpose, as if he's been here before, guiding them through these enigmatic paths with a quiet confidence that gives Chloe a sense of calm, yet also unease. After what feels like hours, they arrive at an old, weathered door tucked away behind an ivy-covered archway. Elias glances at Chloe, his eyes intense, and gives her a silent nod. He opens the door, revealing a room bathed in soft golden light. Inside, people of all kinds, artists, intellectuals, travelers, are gathered in conversation. But there's something odd about them. They seem to be waiting, as if expecting something or someone. A tall woman, with silver hair and piercing eyes, approaches them. "Elias," she says, her voice low and commanding. "You've brought her." Chloe feels her heart race. The woman's gaze scans her, weighing her like a puzzle piece. "It's time." Elias steps forward, his hands still clasped around Chloe's, and gestures to the woman. "Chloe, meet Nora. She's part of the Order." The words hit Chloe like a wave. "Order? What is this place?" And what does Nora mean by time? Nora smiles faintly. You've felt it, haven't you? That tug in your chest, the sense that there's something more to your life than you can see. That's why Elias brought you here. Chloe opens her mouth to ask more questions, but the words falter on her lips. The weight of it all is too much. Nora takes a step back, her silver eyes never leaving Chloe. The city has a secret, a power that binds all of us. But it can only be unlocked by those who understand the deeper threads that weave through our lives. Elias has been waiting for you to find your place in this puzzle. Elias's grip tightens around her hand. And for the first time since they met, Chloe sees a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. It's not just about the city, Chloe. It's about you. What you're capable of. Before she can respond, the room begins to hum. The air shifts, and the shadows in the room seem to stir as if alive. Nora steps back, as if offering Chloe the space to decide. It's your choice, Nora says, her voice now softer, almost a whisper. The path you take next will change everything. Chloe takes a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision closing in on her. The future, the unknown, Elias's secrets, they all swirl around her like an uncharted storm. Are you ready? Elias asks, his voice barely audible, his gaze steady but filled with something deeper than before, a mix of hope and fear. Chloe doesn't know what the future holds, but for the first time in her life, she feels ready to step into it. The city, Elias, and the mysterious order are all part of something far larger than anything she could have imagined. But now, standing at the crossroads of this hidden world, she knows one thing for certain. Whatever happens next, she's no longer a bystander in her own story.